This is Liz Colburn, host of The Morning Uplift. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Rachel Mullins, host of No Filter Friday here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my new show, No Filter Friday, where we talk about all of the sexual misconduct allegations swirling around Hollywood. A new show drops every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of No Filter Friday. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Fantasy Wizards. It's been a while for me, but I'm back. Hopefully you remember me. I'm Kevin Wells, joined by Scott Wisniewski. Scott, how are you doing this afternoon? Actually, evening now. Seems like the day already got away from me.
It seems like this week got away from me. I'm doing great. We're essentially in my favorite time of the year because it's the last week of the regular season for fantasy football players, and that means the playoffs are next week, and I'm excited.
Absolutely. It's a great time. I mean, playoffs aren't around the corner for the Bears, unfortunately for me, but hopefully for my fantasy team, they'll get me through this rough time of actual football, you know? I know you're in the same boat.
Yeah, 100%. As much as I am a Packer fan, I can't tell you how many times that fantasy football has helped, soothe some of those wounds. And honestly, the Packers have been good for quite a while, but when I was a youngster, from the late 70s all the way through the 80s, I wish I had fantasy football to distract me, and I certainly didn't. Hey, we got the rundown, and we're going to go through some of this stuff, but you and I were talking right before we got on the air, and we were kind of talking about how our seasons are going, and you're in good shape in both your leagues, and I'm in the playoffs in 5 out of my 7, and I have a chance to get into a 6th. The other one's a lost cause. I'm 3-9 in that league.
Oh, man.
But in the 2 leagues where I've clinched the first-round bye, in both of those leagues, somebody had dropped Ezekiel Elliott. And I put in a claim for him, and I got him in both leagues, which my whole thought process was, I've got a week 14 bye. I don't have to play. He's got a hearing tomorrow. They're saying he could get that suspension reduced by a game, which puts him back in week 15, which means I have him for my playoff run. I guess the moral of that story isn't to tell you, hey, look what I did. The moral of the story is to look on your waiver wire and see if he's still there, and see if, especially if you're going to make the playoffs and you have a roster spot that you can stash him away, it's probably a smart move.
It's definitely a smart move. Look how bad they've been without him. I mean, Dak Prescott has been a complete head case and just looks completely lost out there without him. And even though the Cowboys won't make the playoffs, Ezekiel Elliott's still a solid runner to have. Even on a couple weeks bye, he's going to be well rested and come back. And if he gets that removed, the suspension down at least a game, I mean, that's going to be great for your team on top of what you guys already have. Because if you're in the playoffs in all those leagues, chances are you got some pretty solid running backs. And if you get another one, man, that's a great move. That's fantasy gold right there. That might be the best move of the year for you.
Well, and one of them I'm actually maybe looking, and we're going to get into this in a minute, because I've got Hunt in the league where one of them, and he's starting to fade out, and I might be getting a replacement that's better than him to kind of help me get through it all. There's a lot of people. So I had a bunch of folks reach out to me this week, and I picked 6 people who are still in a legitimate playoff run that need our advice, Kev. This is what we're here for. By the way, everybody watching, Public House Media gives us this forum twice a week. We want to answer your questions. It's kind of what we do here on Fantasy Wizards. And Kevin, I know this isn't you, because this Kevin's 7-5, and he's looking for 2 wide receivers out of these 3 in a PPR league. Obviously, 7-6 might get him in, but 8 wins should get him into his playoffs. 6 teams in his league make the playoffs. He's got Funches, he's got Keenan Allen, he's got Baldwin. I'll let you weigh in. Obviously, Keenan Allen, the way he's played the last few weeks, you've got to start him every week. But between Funches and Baldwin, do you like one better than the other?
Well, what I was going to say is Funches didn't practice yesterday, so that's something to keep note of. He hurt his toe in the game he played last week against New York. So keep an eye on him. But right now, I'm starting him over Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin he struggled these last few weeks. He had a touchdown in there against Atlanta. But he plays Philadelphia this week, and what Philadelphia did to the Bears last week in the passing game was unholy. So you don't want to start any wide receivers against that Philadelphia secondary unless you absolutely have to. Although they didn't force many turnovers, they only picked off Trubisky, I believe, twice. It's a tough spot to fill. Doug Baldwin, I believe he's had under 100 yards these last 2 weeks. He's not a guy I'm looking to go for. But once again, if Funchess is hurt, then you have to go Baldwin. So keep an eye on him. But right now, definitely Keenan Allen. He's been phenomenal. Over 100 yards receiving in 4 games this year, including over 100 yards against that Philadelphia secondary, which is not much anybody's been able to do. I'd be surprised if anybody else in the league has been able to do that this year. So right now, Funchess and Baldwin are my 2 starters, or Allen and Funchess are my 2 starters.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I'd be interested to see if you have Jimmy Graham somewhere. I think that's where you might make some of those, because Wilson will complete some passes. He'll have a decent enough game. He'll do some of it on his feet, and Jimmy Graham's become the red zone target for him, to be quite honest with you.
And I don't know why it took that long to get there. I mean, we waited 2 or 3 years to see Jimmy Graham finally emerge as a solid tight end, just like he was in New Orleans. And if you're lucky enough like me, you have Zach Ertz and Jimmy Graham on both of your teams. So definitely those 2 solid. And we're starting to see more Jimmy Graham every week, which is awesome. It's good to see.
Absolutely. So Melissa needs a running back, and she's got Murray. There's Tennessee's Murray, Crowell, and Devontae Booker. She's looking for a running back. She's 8-4. She's probably in the playoffs, but maybe she's looking to win her division, get some extra reward for that. Maybe looking for a bye. I've not been a Crowell guy all year. He's been very inconsistent. Booker seems to be getting, more of the carries, but it's still this Denver offense that's not spectacular. And DeMarco Murray scored last week, but didn't get the majority of the snaps. This is kind of a mess. I mean, they all could have good games, but they all could lay an egg too.
See, this whole year in the entire NFL has been so strange because a lot of people, including myself, had Tennessee taking that division by storm, no problem. But right now, their offense is in shambles. We don't even know who their best running back is, whether you want to blame that on coaching or offensive line, quarterback still being young and not understanding. You can blame it on whatever you want, but DeMarco Murray's been the most inconsistent back. He's been pretty rough all year long, but these other 2, I mean, same thing. And with DeMarco scoring last week, I guess you could go off of that and say, okay, maybe he's going to be the veteran of this offense now and maybe start to take more control. So I'm going to start DeMarco Murray. As for the other 2, it's a complete toss-up. Whoever you're really feeling coming to that week. Scott, who do you think? I mean, maybe Booker. Booker seems to be getting some more touches now, like you said. So maybe him, but I'm not sure.
I would probably just default to say Murray, but, we've talked about this on our Thursday shows. I have Murray in one league and Henry in the other, and I always seem to pick the wrong week to start either one of them. So maybe when it comes to talking Tennessee running backs, I'm probably not the guy to ask, but I'm going to say Murray just on default. Iron T, my buddy Iron T, 9-3. Now, check this out. So he went heavy on rookies this year, it sounds like, and it's gotten him to the playoffs. Fournette, Hunt, McCaffrey, he needs to start 2 of those guys. We'll get this one out of the way right away with McCaffrey. McCaffrey's a yes, okay?
Yeah.
McCaffrey's a guy who's now getting more carries. He's been great in the receiving game. But Fournette and Hunt both have kind of disappeared. Hunt more than Fournette. I think I would trust Fournette more than I would trust Hunt, and hopefully Hunt can figure it out, hopefully for my sake, because I have him in a couple leagues. But right now, I'd be hesitant to play Hunt. If I could only pick 2, I'd say Fournette and McCaffrey.
See, I'm going to disagree with you there. I think Fournette is still hurt. That's the reason he sat out almost the entire 4th quarter last week. The Jaguars' running game only had 25 yards total, and that has a lot to do with Fournette's injury. I think it's a nagging injury. They're not saying much about it right now. I think he'll still play Sunday, but you want to be wary with him. I mean, obviously, as a fantasy owner, it doesn't matter if he gets hurt and he's starting, whatever. It's not your call, but for me, I'm starting Kareem Hunt again, even though the Chiefs' offense has kind of been like Tennessee. They were great to start the year, and then Alex Smith kind of realized that he was Alex Smith and not some superstar. So I'm going to start McCaffrey, absolutely. He's been arguably, I don't know, you might even call him Rookie of the Year right now. He's been the most consistent rookie, I think, all year. He's a definite yes, and Kareem Hunt, I think, is going to figure it out this week, so I'm going to go with him. It's only a matter of time before he gets back to the winning ways that he had in those first couple weeks of the season.
What a great season, by the way, for rookies. So we're forgetting Dalvin Cook, who got hurt.
He was awesome.
And those are just a few. Alvin Kamara has been amazing. There's been so many great rookie running backs. Joe Mixon starting to find his way now too. So, so that would be interesting. So Ian Thorne has a fantasy football question for us. I'll let him type that up while I go to my
That's
next
one of my buddies. All right. What does he got?
We're interested. So he's going to type it up here in a second. While he does that, Rick Peck needs 2 receivers in a non-PPR league. Jesus. Dez, Marvin Jones, Emmanuel Sanders, and Martavius Bryant.
Some really good names on paper there, I'll tell you. Like all 4 of those guys before the year, you'd be like, oh, wow, that's a great thing to choose from. But now, I don't know. What were you going to say?
Well, who do you think the best of those 4 this year has been? It's the one that would surprise you the most.
I mean, probably Marvin Jones. He's probably been the best one. And I have Des Bryant, and he's been pretty quiet. It seems like every year I draft Des Bryant, he's usually pretty quiet. So maybe I should stop picking him for other people's sake. But I'm going to say Des Bryant. He's been consistent enough to start out of these 4. The more I watch Pittsburgh, the more I don't want to start Martavis Bryant, just because Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown have been the only 2 getting key touchdowns, key touches on every drive. I remember watching the Steelers game with some friends the other week, and we were waiting for Martavis Bryant to make a catch, and Roethlisberger just seemed he wasn't throwing to him. I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to start Martavis Bryant much. I'm starting Marvin Jones. I'm starting Des Bryant. And
I agree because I like Sanders. I don't trust his quarterback situation.
I'm done with Sanders. I like Sanders too. I have him as a backup, but with the quarterback and with that offense, I'm thinking about dropping him. He doesn't have anything for me. He's done nothing all year, so it's unfortunate. But I got him with a lower pick. So what can you say?
Sure. Hey, Chris has a question too for us, and I actually have this same dilemma in one of my leagues, but I'm fine. I'm in the playoffs, but he's 6-6, so he needs to win and have some help, obviously. So he wants to know if he should start Carr or McCown this week. Carr obviously will be without his top 2 receivers. Crabtree suspended. Cooper's going to miss the game, likely to miss the game. McCown's been really good again, and he's playing a bad Chiefs secondary. As much as I like Carr, I think McCown's a better play.
And see, for me, I knew that what's his face was hurt. I didn't know though he was missing his top 2 wide receivers in Carr, but I was still picking McCown regardless of those 2 facts, because McCown he's been solid for that Jets team, and against teams that should have been stopped. Kansas City defense has been really, really poor. They've given up a ton of fantasy points to teams that they should have had relatively easy times against. New York Giants are in shambles. They're starting Geno Smith this week. Buffalo, not very great either. So Buffalo was on the verge of a playoff run and spoke too soon. They fell off. So neither team has been very solid on the offensive side of the ball, but yet the Kansas City defense was unable to stop them because of their poor secondary. So you know what? Shoot your shot and go Josh McCown, man. I'm doing Josh McCown all day.
I agree with you 100%. Okay, so Ian got back to us, and I'll let you answer Ian's question. The question is, what's more likely to happen this week? Josh Gordon scoring 30 points, or Ian finally working up the courage to ask a girl out? You can answer that one probably better than me.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with Josh Gordon scoring 30 points. He's a little. I don't know what you're doing over there, Ian, but there's plenty of girls that are interested in you. Get off your seat. I'll see you tonight, Ian, and we'll help you out with that one. But
and I don't know you, Ian, but I'm telling you, you don't want to put that much faith in Josh Gordon. Work up the courage, man.
Dude, I don't think Josh Gordon. I think he's going to come back, and we'll see how much if he ends up drinking before the game like he usually does. Apparently, I don't know how that works, but I think Josh Gordon's going to have a decent comeback this game. I think he'll score a touchdown, considering he's probably now the most skilled wide receiver on that Browns team, despite not playing for 3 years. I'm going to go with I'm going to answer Josh Gordon on that one.
Wow, 30 points for Gordon. Okay,
sorry, Ian.
We got one more, and then we're going to get into burning questions for this week's game. Ryan is 6-5-1, so he's in a league that doesn't break ties apparently, which also kind of screws up the standings in a lot of leagues if you don't have tiebreakers. But he needs a running back: Carlos Hyde against the Bears or Rex Burkhead, in that weird now seemingly two-headed monster between Deion Lewis and Burkhead in New England. Who do you like?
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Rex Burkhead had his first really good game with New England last week. He had his first touchdown, about 50 yards on the ground, I want to say. But Carlos Hyde is no longer the primary running back down there, and the Bears' defense, as bad as it has been these last few weeks, they play the run pretty well. So I'm not starting Carlos Hyde at all. It doesn't matter who they're playing against, even if it is against the Bears. I'm going to start Burkhead, even though we know that New England has a thing with running backs where one guy has a good week and you see another one thrown in there in the mix next week. I think Burkhead's got a good chance to keep what he's been doing up. I'm going with him just because Carlos Hyde has been brutal this year, and you can't trust him really in any situation.
Sure. I'm going to go Hyde, but only for this reason. I like the Bears defense. I respect them despite what happened last week against Philly.
Yeah.
So I think with Garoppolo starting, they're going to try to force the run a little bit more because that offensive system of Shanahan's is confusing. And there's a reason why they traded for Garoppolo and didn't insert him in right away, because there's a lot to figure out. Now, I could be wrong, and Burkhead could, because if you can figure out Bill Belichick, you're a genius. Because I have no idea what Belichick's going to do with his running backs from week to week. I'm just going to go Hyde sheerly on game plan. I just feel I just feel like they're not going to have much of a choice, and maybe he'll get 60 yards and score a goal line touchdown, and that might be better than what you get out of Burkhead.
And you bring up what was that?
I said plus they'll let Hyde catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit too, and it might be the short, simple, easy passes just to get Garoppolo, a little bit more comfortable.
And you bring up a great point there too with a rookie quarterback. Everybody should know this if you play fantasy football. Starting a rookie quarterback and a rookie offense usually means more points for your running back just because the playbook is a lot shorter. So that's a great point, Scott. I just don't know if Carlos Hyde's really going to be a part of that offense too much just because Matt Breida has been the primary back there. I know he's still going to get touches, but you got to think that Carlos, I don't know. We'll see. I like your points, but I'm still going to go Burkhead.
Brian Carl had a comment. He said he's 6-5-1 as well, fourth place, but only a half game out of second. Yeah, those ties really mess some things up. Hey, there's a big game tonight. We got a rivalry game. Cowboys, Redskins, two teams kind of going backwards. And we're going to ask a couple of questions about that game, and we'll start with an over-under question. Kirk Cousins, over-under 275 yards tonight.
I'm going to go under just because of the sheer fact. I don't know if he has. I don't know how many 300-yard games he has this year off the top of my head, but I know it's not too many. Beat up O-line, beat up everything. I think Kirk Cousins is going to have. He'll have over 200 yards, but I don't think it'll be over 275. I'm going to go under.
Okay, so using that logic, and I'm going to say under, but not by much. He's had a few. He had 242, 320. He had back-to-back 300-yard games in weeks 11 and 12 against the Vikings and the Saints.
That's pretty impressive company right there, too, to get 300 yards against those two defenses. But
I think with Perrine, the over-under for him is 95. He's had back-to-back 100-yard games. Maybe they rely on the run. What do you think for Samaje? Will it be 95 yards over-under?
I'm going to go over just because I think that the last couple of weeks we've seen it. We've seen more trust in the run game, and we've seen more yards come out of the backfield than over the middle. So it's just been pretty bad these last couple of weeks. They haven't been respecting the run at all. Doesn't matter who they've been playing. They've been getting blown out of the water in the run department. So I'm going to go over.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Dallas's defense is terrible. By the way, 3,000 yards already for Kirk Cousins this year. So
that's unbelievable.
And last one, better play for the Cowboys. And this is a sneaky one. I picked this guy up in 2 leagues just because I had a roster spot. Rod Smith or Alfred Morris? Who's the better play for the Cowboys tonight?
Now, if I'm being honest with you, I really don't know a lot about Rod Smith. All I know Darren McFadden, they released him and he retired, so he kind of lost that race. So I think Alfred Morris was the guy that they were saying was going to get the majority of their touches. I picked him up. He really hasn't had a whole bunch to do down there these last couple of weeks. Even though they said he was going to get touches, he's been pretty under average in fantasy. I'm gonna go with Rod Smith. I don't know a whole lot about him, but Alfred Morris hasn't done much, so you got to go with the other guy. You got to go with Rod Smith.
I'm going to go with Rod Smith, too. He's a dual threat back. He's more fit to be an every down back, and he may even get a little bit of playing time when Ezekiel Elliott comes back, because prior to his suspension, he'd been getting like 92% of the snaps. But Rod Smith is a guy that seems to have won some fans in that coaching staff down there. So we have a lot of games this week. There's some interesting ones, and then there's some not so good games. I'll get to some of those in a minute. But the Vikings play the Falcons, and that's the national game on Fox. And a couple of questions here. So the first one for you, Kevin, Case Keenum, a guy who has done everything that has been asked of him, yet his own coach will not commit that he'll be the starter for the remainder of the season, which really
absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. He's been phenomenal for them all year long. And without Dalvin Cook, that offense somehow manages to click on all cylinders. He absolutely should be the starter. I don't know why he hasn't committed to that yet. Ridiculous.
I agree with you. So here's the over-under on him. Over-under for Keenum, 250 passing yards.
I'm going over. Definitely going over for Keenum. He's going to have a big week this week. That team is still – they haven't completely clinched a playoff spot or the NFC North yet, but the Vikes they're gonna win the North, and I think that Case Keenum is a big part of that. He's going to have a big week this week against a playoff caliber team that was in the Super Bowl last year. So I'm going over for him. I'm going to say he has around 325.
I agree that he'll go over. It'll be somewhere in like the 290, 300 range, but I think he's going to have a great game. A guy who I'm not sure about. He missed last week's game. Devontae Freeman against a really, really good Minnesota run defense, over under 75 yards. I say under. He's been underwhelming, no pun intended, even before the concussions. This is a really good run defense.
I see what you did there, and I enjoyed the pun. I'll give you a B+ on that one, but I'm going under for Freeman. Vikings run defense is phenomenal. I want to say it's top 10. It may be top. It's definitely top 10. I believe it's top 5. So I'm going under for Freeman. He really hasn't had the year he had last year, and the Vikings have just been clicking on all cylinders. So you got to go under for him there.
Here's a controversial question. Last one for that game. I know Julio Jones finally had his breakout game last week, and he was amazing. But an intriguing question nonetheless. Better fantasy play this week, Julio Jones or Adam Thielen?
You can't go wrong with one. These two are top 3 in the league in receiving yards with Antonio Brown. I believe Antonio Brown's first, Julio's second, and Thielen's right behind him in third. I believe they all, if I know 2 of them have over 1,000, in Antonio and Julio. I think Thielen's getting close. I'm not sure if he's exactly at 1,000 or over yet, but I like Thielen, man. I don't know where he came from, but he's really come and emerged as the leader of that offense under Case Keenum. So, and with the absence of Dalvin Cook and whoever, what's his face from Ole Miss, who hasn't done anything for them at all, expected to be one of their top receivers going into the year. He hasn't done much at all. So I'm going to go with Thielen on this one.
I'm going to go with Thielen as well, and he is just over 1,000 yards, 1,005.
Just over?
1,000.
Okay, I knew he was getting there.
Now catch this, too. 70 receptions and only 3 drops and averaging almost 15 yards a catch. So what a great season he's had.
That's crazy.
Quietly, right? Like a lot of people aren't talking about him, but
nobody knows who he is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And if you're in a fantasy league with your friends who don't know football too well, this is a guy to pick up because he's been crazy. And if he's still available, you got some talking to do with some friends because he's unbelievable. He's been having a great year.
Yeah, if he's still available, let me play in that league next year.
No kidding.
Public House Media presents Fantasy Wizards. He's Kevin Wells. I'm Scott Wisniewski here on a Thursday. Texans and Titans. only one question on this one. And again, it's interesting because neither one has been real impressive. Tom Savage or Marcus Mariota? Who are you playing if you got to pick one of those two?
I'm going to go with Mariota. I know he's been struggling, but the Texans' defense is brutal. They don't have a pass rush. They don't have a secondary. Mariota's going to get on track eventually. Why not this week against a weaker opponent? I'm going to go him. Tom Savage has not really been anything, so got to go Mariota.
Yeah, that was a back-breaking interception on Monday night, Savage.
That was terrible.
Chiefs-Jets. We talked about two of these players. Over, under for Kareem Hunt, 50 yards. I say over, but not by much. What do you think?
See, I think just because he struggled these last couple of weeks, I'm going to go way over. I think Kareem Hunt's going to have a 100-yard game, one that we haven't seen him do in a while. The Jets they're a sneaky team. A lot of people predicted them to go 0-16, but for whatever reason, they've been sneaking up on people and winning football games. So they know they have a decent defense. It's not great, but Kareem Hunt's going to get back to his old ways, and I believe he's going to have about 100 yards against this Jets team.
The poor Jets, if as bad as the bottom half of the playoff race has been in the AFC, if they could have figured out how to close some of those fourth quarter games that they blew, they'd be in a playoff race. And part of the reason is because of Josh McCown, over under 2.5 touchdowns. I'm going to say over. I think he throws 3.
I'm going to go over, too. I'm going to agree with you on that one. I think Josh McCown's been great, and I was just reading a report today that he hasn't ruled out that he may return to the Jets next season. Now, if you're a Jets fan out there, I don't know if you're groaning or not, but take it or leave it. He's a better quarterback than Geno Smith. He's better than Mark Sanchez. He's better than what you've had in the past. I'm going to go over for him. I think he's going to have a good week.
I agree as well. And last question about that game. Better fantasy play, Robbie Anderson or Tyreek Hill?
I'm not really sure. Both have been kind of quiet. I'm going to go Tyreek Hill. What about you?
I'm going to go Robbie Anderson. He's 5 straight games with a score, and he seems to be looking like the go-to guy.
Really? It was 5 straight? Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, I read that wrong. I only read a couple in a row. That's my fault.
And the problem with Hill is he's a hit-or-miss guy. He's a lot like Josh Gordon, right? He'll catch those deep ones. If he breaks a 70-yard touchdown for you, you're going to have a great game. If he doesn't break that long run after catch, he's not a guy who's going to make 8, 9, 10 catches. So I think that limits him a little bit. I'm going to say Anderson. Oh, here's a stinker of a game. Broncos-Dolphins. Yikes.
Oh, boy.
I guess it's Jay Cutler revenge game if he plays. Of course, Broncos are Cutler's first team. I only have one question about this game, and it's really not much. Better play this week. Drake, the running back, who's going to get most of the snaps because Williams is out, or Devontae Booker for the Broncos. Which one? If you not neither one's a great choice, but who you pick?
Yeah, that's like asking, do you want to jump off a 100-foot bridge or a 200-foot bridge? I mean, both are going to kill you. So I'm going to go. I don't know. Give me a little bit more time to think on that one. What do you think? Who are you going to take?
Boy, I would take Drake just because, even though I think Booker's a better player, I would take Drake because he's just going to get more carries. Okay. I mean, I think Anderson still takes a few of the carries away from Booker, and just for sheer volume, I might go Drake.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Drake too. I like what you said there. I'm gonna agree with you. I'm not watching this game. I don't know much about either offense other than they're both in shambles and Jay Cutler's at the helm of one. So I'm gonna go with the other one.
Okay, so Colts Jaguars. I think I know your answer on this one already, but over under for Fournette. Over or under 70 yards. I'm gonna say under, but not way under. I think, though, with you and the thought that he could still be banged up, and I think that's a really good thought there, you may not think he might even clear 40 yards this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go under. I think he's still hurt. And the biggest cue to that was because he didn't play at all in the fourth quarter in a game that they I believe they lost.
They did lose, yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't have your star running back in there, that clearly means there's an issue. It's probably a nagging injury. I'm going to go under for him.
It really was a gruesome. I remember the injury when it happened about 6 weeks ago. It was gruesome. And then the fact that he practiced but then was inactive the week after and then got suspended. But it looked really bad. I mean, I was really surprised that they were trying to get him back on the field as quickly as they were. Bucks, Packers. The Buccaneers come to Green Bay. Two questions, interesting questions on this one. Better play. Now, Jameson Winston is going to start. That was announced today. Winston will be back at the helm for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that changes the dynamic of this question a little bit. But the question I had was, who's a better play, Mike Evans or Davante Adams? Davante Adams has become the go-to guy. In fact, we mentioned this on Tuesday, Kevin. Since Aaron Rodgers got hurt, the last 5 games, Jordy Nelson's only got 13 catches. Meanwhile, Davante Adams has blown up. I think with Winston back, that improves the value of Mike Evans a little bit. But who's the better play this week?
I'm going to go Mike Evans still. I know that he's been better even under the rookie QB up in Green Bay, but I'm still going to go Mike Evans. He's got his starting quarterback back. He's a top 5 wide receiver when he's healthy. He's going to have a great game and he's going to have a field day against that Green Bay secondary. So I'm going to go Mike Evans.
I think just because of that alone, this is a terrible secondary in Green Bay. I too think Mike Evans is the choice. Better play, Jacquizz Rodgers or Jamal Williams for the Packers. I'm going to say Williams because I think Rodgers is going to share carries with Peyton Barber. Aaron Jones practiced, but I don't think he's going to be back. Ty Montgomery's not going to be as big in the mix. I think Williams gets slightly better than Rodgers, just on volume.
I'm going to go Williams, too. Yeah, Ty Montgomery's going to miss. He's still missing a few weeks with those ribs, so I think he's going to get majority of those carries. I know he's going to still split time, but I think that he's going to be the better play there. I agree.
Lions play the Ravens. Ravens' defense is pretty stout. That being said, Matt Stafford, over or under 230 yards?
We're going to go over. Matt Stafford's a pretty consistent over 200 yards a game kind of guy. I believe he's averaging over 200 yards a game through the air right now. I'd have to check up on that, but I'm going to do that right now. But, yeah, I'm going to go over for him. The only really good defensive game that we've seen out of Baltimore this year has been against Green Bay when they shut him out. So
they shut out Miami, and they had another game that they held somebody to 3.
It's Miami, though, you know.
Sure. It's hit or miss. Now, Stafford, much like Cousins, almost the same stat line, just slightly over 3,000 yards already for the season, 21 touchdowns thrown so far this year. So he's having a good year.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's earning that paycheck, that's for sure, even though his team just, for whatever reason, they can't find ways to win games. Yes, he is. Yeah, he's at 3,010 yards, 21 touchdowns. His completion percentage could be a little higher, but yeah, I'm still going to go Stafford. He's going to have over for sure.
49ers Bears, better play Jimmy Garoppolo or Mitchell Trubisky?
Well, this game's going to mean a lot to me just because the Bears were in trade talks for Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason. They didn't end up trading for him, and then the Patriots sold him for a can of corn, basically. They gave him for a second-round pick. I'm going to go Trubisky. He's a fighter. He had a really, really rough week against a really good Philadelphia defense. I think that this is the week where he's going to show people that he's not afraid. Like, he's going to have bad weeks. He's going to have growing pains. It's Garoppolo's first week, too, starting for this team. So I don't think his playbook's going to be as big, whereas Trubisky's going to have a little bit more trust, even though the offensive line or the offensive coordinator, Donald Logan, still doesn't have a lot of faith in him, which sucks because he does have an arm. I just think that it's Trubisky's week. He's going to shine against a really, really bad defense.
I like Trubisky. I don't think either quarterback's going to be great. Garoppolo's going to need some time to figure that out. Where I think the Bears are going to do well and why they're going to beat the 49ers is because of this question. Howard, over under 95 yards, I say over. I think he gets back on track after a rough week last week, and he's going to be the real offensive catalyst, I think.
Yeah, Jordan Howard's going to have way over 95. If he doesn't have at least a touchdown and 150 yards in this game, I mean, well, not 150, that's a lot, but let's go 120 and a touchdown. If he doesn't have at least that, you know, that's saying something. Then you might have some other problems to worry out. But remember, too, that Kyle Long, the Bears, Kyle Long has been beat up pretty bad. I don't know if he's going to play this week. He's been in and out of the lineup. And then, of course, what's his face? Another just got from Green Bay a few years ago. He's in concussion protocol. And he's Johnson's in concussion protocol. So I don't know if he's going to play this week either. So 2 things to keep in mind, but I still think that Jordan Howard's going to have over 95 yards on the ground.
All right, so Patriots now will take on the Bills. Over under Tom Brady, 2.5 touchdowns. I say over.
Way over. Yep. Tom Brady loves playing against the Bills. He usually has 300 plus yards, 3 scores all the time against the Bills. Bills are going to get blown out in this one. Don't expect a good game here.
And LaShawn McCoy over under 75 total yards. I say over, but not by much. I think he might be the only thing that gets anything going in that offense for Buffalo.
For my sake, I hope it's over because he struggled the last few weeks, so I need him to be over. So that's why I'm going to say over. I'm going to say McCoy's going to have 100 yards and maybe a touchdown.
All right, let's flip over quickly. Next, we got about 6-7 minutes here. We'll do the late games. Browns Chargers over under Josh Gordon 50 yards in his return to the field.
He's going to have over. I think Josh Gordon's going to come back. And regarding any injuries or any subs he takes for the game, I'm going to say he doesn't. So if none of that happens, I'm assuming he's going to have a pretty decent game for the Browns. The Browns are still going to lose, and he's not going to do anything special. But he's going to have over 50 yards.
Yeah, I think he'll do over 50, and I think he'll do that with 3 catches. He'll have 1 for 40 and then a couple other catches, and maybe end up with 3 catches for 65 yards or something like that.
That one great play to start the game, and people are like, oh, he's back. The Browns are back, and then he'll kind of fall back to normal.
He'll save his big game for next week when they play the Packers. Melvin Gordon, on a lot of Gordons. Josh Gordon, now Melvin Gordon for the Chargers, over under 80 yards.
I'm going to go over. Melvin Gordon's going to destroy that Browns defense. He's waiting. Melvin Gordon's been great all season, very consistent, but these last couple of weeks, I think he hasn't really had as much time with the ball as he would have liked, but they're going to give him a lot more trust, especially running against the Browns. He's going to have over 80 yards.
Phillip Rivers, over under 2.5 touchdowns. I say the way Allen and Henry have been playing lately, I got to say over, right?
I'm gonna have to agree with you. Keenan Allen's been awesome. He's definitely gonna. I think he's gonna have 3. We'll go with 3 on him. As just as a guess, the Chargers have actually been turning some heads down there, and I think that they could actually. You never know, man. You could see that team and that offense kind of maybe make a wild card appearance. They've been pretty solid. I don't know if they'll get there, but
they could win that division though. They're only a game back of the Chiefs were running away with that, and now they've fallen back to the pack. And here come the Chargers and Raiders still hunting around. I think talent wise, the Chiefs are still the better team, but man,
yeah, they are.
All it takes is a couple more slip ups. Speaking of interesting games, Panthers play the Saints. Christian McCaffrey, over under 100 all-purpose yards. I say over.
I don't know. Saints defense is solid. I'm going to go under on this one. I don't think, as much as McCaffrey's been, who I said at the beginning of the year was going to be the best rookie running back, and there's a lot of good rookies as we touched on early in the show. By the way, if you want to go back and rewatch the show, it will be posted on Public House Media page. You can go back. It's also on my Facebook page. I've shared it. So we talked a lot about McCaffrey and Fournette earlier in the show, but I'm going to go under for McCaffrey. And usually I wouldn't say this, but I have more than I do in a rookie running back running against a high-powered defense. I'm going to go under. I think it's going to be close. He's still going to have a good game, but I'm going to go under 100 yards all-purpose.
All right, better play. Alvin Kamara or Mark Ingram, they've both been really good. They both kind of traded back and forth, big game. One has, they both have decent games. One has the bigger one than the other. I think Kamara is going to have more so here's my answer. Kamara has more all-purpose yards. Ingram will have more yards on the ground. So
I was just about to say the same thing. Completely agree. Both have been splitting time, but Ingram's a better running back. So if you have if you want to start him, I would, but both can't go wrong either way. Both have been solid.
Here's an interesting question. Better play, Drew Brees or Cam Newton? Cam Newton has struggled but have put up yards. Drew Brees has not put up the numbers that Drew Brees is used to putting up. I think with that running game being as solid as it is, and it's really good, plus with Cam Newton having the ability to score rushing touchdowns, I think Cam Newton has the better stat line, a better fantasy stat line, even if his team doesn't win.
I agree, but I'm also just because of the sole factor that Luke Kuechly is back, I'm going to go Cam Newton. I think that he's going to have a better game. He's been slowly starting to figure out his offense, and now that McCaffrey's really found his sea legs in the pros, he's been huge for him. Drew Brees has been great, but with that defense now sort of getting healthy down there in Carolina, and we're starting to see a lot of people called me crazy when I said that Carolina is one of the best teams in the league. I think they're top 5. People were calling me crazy, and now you're starting to see that team come to fruition. So I'm gonna go Cam Newton. He's gonna have a good game.
Well, hey, 2 years ago they had one of the best records in football, and then last year they fell
15-1, right?
Yeah, so I mean they're not that far removed from that type of a season.
Absolutely
Giants
not.
play the Raiders. I know the answer to this one, but I only threw it on here because Derek Carr is playing without his top 2 receivers. Better play this week, Geno Smith or Derek Carr. It's still Derek Carr. I don't care who's catching.
It's Derek Carr. Do not pick up Geno Smith. I would pick up a quarterback who's not going to play before I pick up Geno Smith. Come on now.
Yeah, I hope Ben McAdoo gets fired in the worst, most embarrassing possible way at the end of the season.
I just don't know what he's thinking. Unless the only thing that could make sense about benching Eli Manning is they've embraced the tank. It's a pretty decent draft class coming up, but even so. Come on, you're still not winning games with Eli out there. At least give him the dignity to play. I mean, why are you starting Geno Smith? A lot of people forgot he was even in the NFL at this point.
Absolutely, and it would be different if they had a guy like, say, Trubisky or a rookie that was a hot young thing. Geno Smith has had his chance to prove himself, and it hasn't been good. So I don't understand why you would do this.
And if you have Eli Manning, if you have a better quarterback, obviously start him. But Eli Manning could very well play in this game. I don't see Geno Smith making it out of the first half. So we'll see.
Rams, Cardinals, Todd Gurley, over under 100 yards. I think over.
I'm going to go over. That Rams offense is something else. They're another team sneaking in under the radar. It seems to be this year a team of teams that have usually been really bad have kind of made themselves known. So I'm going to go over for Gurley. He's been great.
Sunday night, Eagles-Seahawks. What a good Sunday night game, huh?
First one in a while.
Last week's game turned out to be better than it should have been. I mean, getting down to a field goal, I thought the Packers were going to lose by 4 touchdowns. I'm not even lying there. So that game was at least fun to watch. But the Eagles-Seahawks, so the Eagles have been the surprise team, the best team in football, but they go to Seattle, a tough place to play. Better play this week, Russell Wilson or Carson Wentz?
Carson Wentz is a better play every week. It doesn't matter who he's playing. He's going to be the MVP this year. He's leading in almost every statistical category on third down conversions. He's top 3 in the league in passer rating. I think he might be number 1 in passer rating this year. He's got MVP level numbers. He's got like 25 touchdowns. He's a better play every week. I would almost start Carson Wentz over basically any other quarterback. And don't forget too that Seahawks defense just bit the dust earlier this year. Carson Wentz is good. They're going to win this game. It's going to be a good game, but Carson Wentz is a better play 9 times out of 10.
Well, here's why I agree with you slightly, because Carson Wentz, 60% completion percentage, 2,600 yards, but 28 touchdowns and only 5 picks. And let's face it, touchdowns score you a lot of points. I think Russell Wilson in this game is likely to steal a touchdown maybe on the ground, maybe throw one to Graham, but I think Wentz is the overall better play because he's going to throw touchdowns. And I think he's going to throw touchdowns simply because I don't think the running game is going to get a lot started with Seattle. Jay Ajayi, I'm setting the bar at 55, over under 55 yards.
I'm going to go under. I really like the way Corey Clement looked last week. He's got the skill level to be a really solid running back in this league. And then don't forget about LeGarrette Blount. I think those two alone are enough to say that Jay Ajayi is not going to get over 55 yards unless he has some big break, big hole, which the Eagles' offensive line is phenomenal. I think they probably the best O-line in the game, up there with Dallas. But unless he breaks a big run, no, I'm going to go no. He's not going to get enough touches to get 55 yards, and I like Clement, and I really like LeGarrette Blount.
Hang on a second. I went away for a minute. Am I back? I'm back. I agree with you there. So the last game of the week, Monday Night Football, Steelers taking on the Bengals. Joe Mixon had his first 100-yard game of his young career. Over under for him, 75 yards against the Steelers, who looked kind of soft defensively last week. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go over for him. I think he's going to have a good week. The Steelers really know how to play down to their opponents. I guess that's kind of the moral of their story, the moral of their last couple seasons. But I'm going to go over for Joe Mixon. He looked really good last week, and I think that's going to continue for him.
Antonio Brown, over under 7 catches. What do you think?
He's going to have over. He usually has around that a game. I think he's going to have over just because he's playing a weaker team in the Bengals. He's going to be targeted a lot more. But don't forget about this, too. With the Steelers in a big playoff race right now, they're almost getting to that point in the regular season now where if they're up by a lot, Antonio Brown may not play that fourth quarter. You may not see some of their stars play that fourth, but they have to be up by a lot. That's asking a lot, but it is a situation you need to start considering as a fantasy owner just because these teams are now starting to play for the playoffs. So are you, but you don't have a say in what they do, obviously. So just be weary about that, but I still think he has over 7 catches.
Yeah, you're right. The Steelers with a 3-game lead over the Ravens, and they could almost salt that division away with a win this week. And lastly, Le'Veon Bell has had some quiet weeks over the last few. Over or under 1.5 touchdowns this week?
I'm going to go under. I think he gets 1 touchdown. That's my guess.
I agree with you there as well. So that's it in a nutshell. We've kind of broken down the fantasy plays in every game, and I hope everybody who's listening is either on their way to a playoff, or if you're not, maybe there's a consolation, maybe there's a toilet bowl. You know what? Try to win, even if you're out. Try to win. You owe it to your league. So you might be playing a team that needs to win to make the playoffs. Play it hard. Play it like this is your playoff game. Go pick up a player if you've got guys injured. Put your best lineup out there for the integrity of your league. Try to knock somebody off their perch as they're trying to make it to the playoffs. You still have something to play for, and it's called pride.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. It's one of my favorite things to do is to knock off the number 1 team in the league. I came so close last week, just fell a little bit short in my PPR league. But once again, if you want to go back, rewatch the show. We covered everything from Antonio Brown to Adam Thielen to Case Keenum and that great Vikings offense that's somehow turning out to be one of the best we've ever seen, even without their star rookie running back Dalvin Cook. We covered a lot. We covered every single game that's going to go on this week. We covered Josh McCown, how Derek Carr is going to miss his top 2 receivers this week. A lot to go over. Leonard Fournette still struggling, whether or not to start him. Go back and rewatch the show. But we thank you all for joining us tonight. Scott, thanks again, as always.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And again, thank you to everybody at Public House Media. And we'll talk next week, and hopefully we'll help get everybody ready for their playoffs as they get underway next week. And again, good luck in your final week of the regular season, and have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, and we want you all to help. We want you all to help me too, because I'm pretty close to making the playoffs in a few of my leagues, and I've never won a league. So send us your questions. We're very interested.
Excellent. Thank you to everybody involved, and we'll be back Tuesday. Robert Gardner and I and Kevin, you and I will reconvene on Thursday as we get everybody set to go. Good night, everybody.
Good night.